So thanks to that 1-inch sensor, the GoPro Mission 1 Pro is a very capable night lapse camera. I've been able to capture some incredible night lapses with this camera, and it's super easy to do. All you need are 2 tools. The first tool is a tripod. It can be a basic tripod like this one right here. This is nothing fancy. This was $20 on Amazon. And the second thing you'll want to have a power bank. And the reason for that is night lapses have a longer interval in between each frame. You don't just want to have your Mission 1 Pro doing a night lapse for a couple hours, because you're not going to get much. It's going to be a couple seconds long. So ideally, you want to have your camera start the night lapse soon after sunset, and you want to have your night lapse end by sunrise. So generally, depending on time of year and where you live, it's going to be 8 hours, 10 hours, maybe 12 hours during the winter months, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. So a power bank that I've used for several years, and I own several of these now, is a power bank from Anker. It has 20,000 milliamp hours of power. It's a great value. It doesn't cost that much. And the ones that I own, they've lasted several years. I've used them countless times, and they continue to work well. So I'll drop a link in the description below if you want to check out that power bank. Once you've selected your location, you want to get your camera set up on your tripod, and ideally, for the best night lapse, if you can have something in the foreground that takes up part of the night lapse, like a tree right here, that can look extra cool in your night lapse because it gives a point of reference. So when the stars are moving around in the sky, having something in the foreground can look really cool. But if you don't have something in the foreground, then I recommend trying to point your camera north if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, because it can look really cool if you have Polaris in the night sky and all of the stars rotating around it. That gives a really neat vantage point for your night lapse. So let's talk about the key settings you need to put on your Mission 1 Pro in order to capture these incredible night lapses. What you first want to do is you want to make sure you're in lapse mode. And if you don't see the lapse option on your menu here, what you want to do is you want to go up to manage modes, and you want to make sure lapse is selected. If you don't see it, it's probably going to be grayed out like that. So just tap it again to select it. And then after you're in lapse mode, you want to click down here at the bottom, and you want to make sure it's set to stationary because we're going to have our camera on the tripod right here. And then for the output for a night lapse, I highly recommend doing video plus JPEG plus RAW. And the reason for that is you can get a good video night lapse out of this camera, but you can get an even better night lapse if you do the photo mode as well, because those RAW photos are going to have additional flexibility for really brightening the sky a little bit and bringing out as many details as possible. So I recommend doing it that way. And I've created a separate video if you'd like to learn more about how to grade those RAW photos from a night lapse. I'm going to go through the entire process for those of you who want to use the photo mode. And then for the aspect ratio, I recommend 4:3. This is going to give you that additional footage at the top and the bottom where you can add some vertical motion during your time lapse. And for the resolution at nighttime, you want to select 4K and not 8K. And the reason for that is because the 4K resolution is 12 megapixel instead of 50 megapixels. Now, initially that might sound like lower quality, but it's actually exactly what we want for nighttime. And the reason is the pixel size is going to be bigger. Thanks to the Mission 1 having a 1-inch quad Bayer sensor, what it's able to do, it's able to fuse those 1.6 micrometer pixels into 3.2 micrometer pixels. And what this does is this gives much better low light performance. That larger effective pixel size is going to look a lot better anytime you're in low light or at nighttime in the case of doing a night lapse. So that is why you want to select the 4K. And for the interval at nighttime, you're going to want to set this around 20 seconds if it's a very dark nighttime sky. Now, if you're in an urban area, something like that, getting a time lapse, you probably can go as low as 5 to 10 seconds for the interval because there's going to be a lot more ambient light to work with. But if you're doing a dark sky in a rural area, you'll want to do about 20 seconds for the interval and make sure interval priority is selected. And then for the timer, I like to keep this at 3 seconds. That way, after I push this, the camera has time to stop wobbling a little bit before it actually starts the time lapse. It's going to help ensure there's no blurriness in there. For the duration, I like to just keep this going all night. But one thing to note is if you were doing it all night, you are going to want to have an external power bank. For the digital lens, I recommend doing wide. You want to capture as much of that sky as possible. For the bit depth, this is gonna apply to the video file, but you do wanna select 10-bit. It's gonna give you those 1 billion color shades versus the 8-bit, which is 16 million shades. Bitrate, you definitely wanna do max. You wanna get the highest quality. And for nighttime, I recommend doing the color of natural. It's going to give you the best results. And then for the shutter speed, we are gonna want to set this manually for night lapses. And what I recommend for the shutter speed is I recommend setting it the same as the interval. What it's going to do is you're going to basically get a shutter speed of about 18 seconds, even when it's set at 20, because the GoPro is gonna need a little bit of time before starting the next frame. So it's actually going to limit that to about 18 seconds, but thanks to the 1-inch sensor, it does let in quite a bit more light than some of the older GoPros. But if you find your night lapses are still a little bit too dark for your liking, you can do the interval of 30 seconds and the shutter of 30 seconds, and that's going to basically max out how much light comes into your camera. But one of the negatives of doing 30 seconds for the interval is you're only gonna get 2 frames per minute at 30 seconds, but if you do 20 seconds, you're going to have a longer night lapse. You're gonna get 3 frames per minute. So that's why I personally prefer the 20 seconds. It's the balance of getting the most frames while also having the shutter open for a long enough amount of time to have the amount of light needed to capture the night sky. For the EV comp, you want to keep that at 0 for a night lapse, and then the white balance, you actually do want to set this to a manual value, and you want to do 3200K for a night lapse. It's going to give you the proper colors for the night sky. And then for the ISO down here, you'll want to put this to a fixed value. And generally what I recommend is I recommend doing 800 to 1600. Now, if there is a moon out at nighttime, you probably want to do 800, but if there is no moon, you can get away with doing 1600. And the noise is going to be manageable, and I'll show you in a moment. We can adjust a denoise setting that's going to help you for the video file, but I recommend doing 1600. I've been able to get quite good results with that. And then for the sharpness, you want to keep that set to low. But then the denoise, as I mentioned, if you're doing the video file, you want to put that to medium. It's going to really help smooth things out and get rid of a lot of that grain and noise that would otherwise be there. I don't like going to high because it makes it look too smooth and you lose a lot of detail because of how smooth it is with the high denoise. So I like sticking at medium. It's a happy balance between detail and noise removal. So once we have keyed in all those settings, what we want to do is we want to adjust our camera. Now right now it is obviously daytime, so everything is going to look white and way overblown on that. But generally what I recommend doing is I recommend doing about a 45-degree angle on your camera here. So I'm going to set it to about that right there. And then once the camera's adjusted, we're just going to hit the shutter button and it's going to start recording the night lapse. One thing you can do here is you can click sleep display. So if you do that, your display is going to go dark and it is going to maximize the battery power. You'll still want a power bank, but when you turn off the display like that, you can typically get 2.5, maybe even 3 hours out of the camera for a night lapse, especially if the outdoor temperatures are not too cold. So that is something worth noting there. And then when you're ready to stop the time lapse, you just hit the shutter button and it's going to stop. And to learn more about how to get the most out of your GoPro Mission 1 Pro, check out this playlist right here.